Hello, everyone. My name is Russell, and this is the Fallout from Dishonor podcast. It is Monday, October 11th, I believe. Yes, it is. At the time of recording this, very early in the AM. And today we're going to be covering some wrestling news, as always. Got a passing to talk about, unfortunately. We're going to get into Ring of Honor TV like we normally do. And then we're going to get into AEW Dynamite, not necessarily in that order. Unfortunately, the first thing I have to talk about is a little bit unfortunate. So, unfortunately, on October 7th of this past week, Canadian professional wrestler and professional belt maker Reggie Parks passed away. Very unfortunate news. For you that may not know who he is, there's a couple of podcasts that have covered him and what he did a little bit. I'm going to get into a little bit of it here. I'm not hearing a bunch about this, which is a little bit unfortunate in my opinion, but so Reggie Parks actually was a wrestler for a short period of time, trained by Stu Hart, wrestled for Stu Hart's promotion up in Canada, was nicknamed the Quiet Superman. Also wrestled for American Wrestling Association. In my research with his actual wrestling career, there wasn't a ton of notable stuff. It looks like he did wrestle Dusty Rhodes at one point. Apart from that, there's not really a ton about him and his wrestling career. I'm going to do some more deep dives into that, but what he's mostly known for is being a belt maker. The first belt that he created was actually in 1962 from a promoter called Joe Dusk, I believe is how you pronounce it, replacing a trophy that he used in the promotion that he did. Most notably for him, he designed what a lot of us grew up with the WWF Championship, the Winged Eagle, the same era's Intercontinental Championship, some more belts that people might not be aware of. He also designed the Andre 87 belt, along with when Ric Flair took off with the big gold to WWF when he bailed on WCW, the replacement heavyweight championship that they had for a few years. Reggie designed that belt. Done belts for the AWA, the NWA, more recently Shimmer and Women of Wrestling. Notable thing that I was unaware of, Madonna has an album cover called Hard Candy where she's actually wearing a championship belt of sorts, and Reggie Parks actually designed that as well. So really unfortunate to hear about his passing. He's kind of more of an unsung hero, more in the vein of like Jim Johnson, that type of thing. So really sad to hear about his passing, and my feelings and condolences go out to him and his family. A few other notable things that happened this past week. Cain Vaelasquez is making his return to pro wrestling, not for WWE. That is still, the kibosh is still put on that. He is returning to AAA. AAA had a show this past Saturday, October 9th, called Heroes Immortals, and they announced that he will be working a show for them on December 4th. I couldn't get a lot of information about the show as far as what it's going to be, what it's going to be named, that type of thing. Valasquez made his AAA debut at AAA's Triple Mania in 2019. He signed with WWE a few years ago in 2009. In the same year, he competed at Crown Jewel against Brock Lesnar in a very, very short match. I think that they probably put that match together and then realized sometime very shortly before the match itself that it wasn't going to go the way they wanted it to. And he would have a house show down in Mexico with Humberto Carrillo, Jesus Christ, and would end up beating the OC. And then that ended up being his last WWE match. He would get released, I don't know about shortly after that, but former WWE women's wrestlers and women's tag team champions, the Iconics, now going to be known as the Inspiration, Cassie Lee and Jessica McKay, have signed a deal with Impact Wrestling and will be making their debut on Saturday, October 23rd at Bound for Glory. Very interesting news. I was never a big fan of the Iconics. The gimmick was kind of annoying to me, actually, but I am glad to hear that they have work in the United States again. Not so much Casey, but Jessica McKay, I've listened to do a few podcasts here in the recent months talking about the Iconics releases, their visa issues, getting green cards or work visas, whatever's been going on. I don't know the particulars as far as whether or not they actually were just able to get green cards or whether they're getting work visas through Impact Wrestling, but I am glad to hear that that got sorted out, and it looks like they will be able to stay in the country, I would presume. Bobby Fish is all elite. We'll get into a little bit more of this later as we get into the AEW review, but he had a TNT Championship match this past Wednesday with Sammy Guevara, and he has signed with AEW since then. I believe it was announced either later that night or very early the next morning. So now we're going to get into some AEW stuff, unfortunately. So WWE has put together their King of the Ring tournament and their Women's Crown tournament. For lack of a better term, it's basically a Women's Queen of the Ring tournament. I don't remember if we went over this last week. I don't know if the brackets were actually even announced last week, but so what we got going on here is before this past SmackDown, brackets were announced for the women's tournament. We got Toni Storm, Zelina Vega, Liv Morgan, and Carmella. Those are from the SmackDown side. And then from Raw, we're getting Doudrop, Natalya, Dana Brooke, and Shayna Baszler. Now, we've got some upset fans, and possibly rightfully so. I know that there's been a lot of controversy, or I should say, there was a lot of controversy years ago about the whole Divas division and how short their matches were and how the women weren't really treated with respect. We have since then kind of evolved, and the women have kind of, I don't know if I want to say they're on par with the men. I know that they've had a couple WrestleMania main events. This last WrestleMania, I still don't think that Sasha and Bianca would have gotten that main event if it was a one-night show. But a lot of people are very upset with this past episode of SmackDown and recent just WWE episodes. So we got the Toni Storm and Zelina Vega match. Vega would advance, and then Liv Morgan and Carmella would advance, which that result has the wrestling world up in arms. A lot of people, there was actually a report I read online that supposedly said Liv Morgan was scheduled to get the victory, and then at the last minute an audible was called. I don't know about all that. When you hear about stuff like that online, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt a little bit. But the SmackDown matches, if you combined their total minutes, I believe it was right around 3 minutes. I read. I didn't watch SmackDown or Raw in its entirety. I'm fairly aware of what's been going on, but I just couldn't stomach it this week. So that's what's going on with the women. The Raw bracket that I mentioned, the Doudrop and Natalya and Dana and Shayna matches, those will take place on Raw. And we'll see what happens. I'm not really super concerned with what happens with the Doudrop and Natalya match. I imagine Doudrop's going to get the W there. I'm pulling for Shayna Baszler to take the whole tournament. Looking at these names, at one point I would have picked either Liv Morgan or Toni Storm, but WWE's not going that way. In fact, the way if SmackDown's any indication, I guess I shouldn't be that surprised if Natalya and Dana Brooke end up going forward with the Raw side. That would be very unfortunate, but it really wouldn't surprise me that much. Getting into the WWE King of the Ring tournament, on the SmackDown side, we have Rey Mysterio and Sami Zayn. This past SmackDown, I believe Sami Zayn did advance, so he's going forward. So that's an interesting pick. I don't know that we got the Kofi Kingston and Jinder Mahal match. I know that they're in the bracket. I don't remember reading anything about that. And again, I didn't watch SmackDown. Feel free to DM me on Twitter and scold the hell out of me. I really don't give a shit. On the Raw side, we got Cesaro and Finn Balor. I think Finn Balor still technically on SmackDown, but I guess he's representing the Raw side. I don't know. And then Xavier Woods and Ricochet. Looking at this, the only two possible names I see taking this one is either Sami Zayn or Finn Balor. That's just my opinion. That's the way I think it should go. They need to do something with one of those two guys. I realize Finn Balor was in the main event picture, but now he's moving over to Raw, so I feel like he could use this. This past Saturday, God, I can't believe I'm about to read this out loud. Stephanie McMahon Helmsley was inducted into the International Sports Hall of Fame. She is the first female executive to get inducted into this. Now, scratching my head a little bit with this one. I get it. Stephanie, she's got the last name. She is a big-time executive behind the scenes with WWE. But come the fuck on, guys. Seriously, this is fucking stupid. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read down the bracket of everyone else that was inducted, and you see if WWE female executive fits in with this. 4-time Mr. Olympian Jay Cutler, NFL legend and Heisman Trophy winner Marcus Allen, world champion martial artist and creator of Taibo Billy Banks, national and world fencing champion Peter Westbrook, and champion martial arts icon Aaron Reyes Sr. I don't know. WWE female executive doesn't really mesh with those names, in my opinion. So now we're going to get into AEW. I've got a few thoughts. It wasn't a bad show. Definitely not. Far from it. AEW's been on a roll as far as Dynamite goes. This is probably the 4th or 5th one in a row that I've heavily enjoyed. I do have a little bit of criticism with this one, but it's not as bad as it maybe has been a few months ago. The very first match was the Super Elite, Kenny Omega the Young Bucks and Adam Cole versus Bryan Danielson, Christian, Luchasaurus, and Jungle Boy. I don't have a ton of notes for this match, and the reason for it is that this was a fucking clusterfuck. AEW and Ring of Honor both are extremely difficult to take notes for. And with that in mind, I just kind of sat back and watched this. This was, as far as spot fests go, this wasn't terrible. It was just move after move after move after move after move. This was a Young Bucks match. This was a Kenny Omega match. This was a Young Bucks match. I've seen better from Kenny Omega. I've seen a lot better from Adam Cole. I've seen better from everyone else on the other side of the aisle. But yeah, the Super Elite would end up taking that one. Basically, everyone just kneed the hell out of Luchasaurus and pinned him. Not a whole hell of a lot to get in as far as the ending of that one goes. We would get a Dean Ambrose promo after that, basically just hyping up the main event. There's not a lot to get into with that. Dean Ambrose, great promo, as always. CM Punk would come out and get the crowd hyped up. I know that I've seen a lot of people online that seem to, well, maybe not a lot of people, some people online starting to get sick of CM Punk. Those people can kiss my white hairy ass. I'm a CM Punk fan. I'm glad that he's back. The bloom is not off the rose with me. And I believe that there are wrestling fans out there that just complain for the sake of complaining. And you guys can go fuck yourselves. Great promo by Punk. Offered to buy them cheesecake or cheese steak, or the crowd, or having them choose for him to wrestle. So that set up a match for him on this past episodes of Rampage. After that, we would get a very bizarre segment. Something I should have mentioned at the beginning of all this, we didn't get as much wrestling as maybe we have in recent weeks of this episode and last week's episode. So we literally went from backstage promo to in-ring promo to a pre-recorded segment. Arn Anderson was outside of Cody Rhodes' home, very illustrious home, I might add, with a burning barrel. Cody came out to confront him. Arn talked some shit to him, not quite as abrasively as he did the week before with the Glock comment, and basically convinced Cody to give him his tie and burn it. So we'll see where this goes going forward. I don't have a ton of faith in it. After that, we got Sammy Guevara, Bobby Fish. Good match. Not a ton to complain about. Not a lot of drama, in my opinion. Bobby Fish, as I said before, is now All Elite. Going into this match, he wasn't signed, at least as far as I know. If he was signed before this match, it didn't leak until afterwards. But they would have a match. Sammy Guevara end up going over, and then Dan Lambert's group of people would end up coming out, beating the hell out of Sammy. Jericho and Hager, the Inner Circle, came out. Actually, I don't know if Proud and Powerful were there. It's been a few days since I watched the show, and I don't have it in my notes, unfortunately. The crowd got so loud, it was extremely difficult to hear what the hell Lambert was saying, but I did get that we're going to be getting Men of the Year and Dos Santos versus Jericho, Hager, and Sammy. After that, there was an Acclaim promo, tag title shot on Rampage against the Lucha Brothers. After that, we got the introduction of the Women's TBS Championship. Again, the internet wrestling community seems a little split with this one. I don't really see how you could not like this design and like the TNT championship design. It's basically the same championship. I don't mind it. The women getting a TV championship, I like that idea a hell of a lot more than giving the AEW women their own set of tag team championships. I got nothing against women's wrestling, and I've got nothing against a women's tag team division when you have enough of a women's tag team division to actually justify it. WWE has 2 sets of women's tag team titles and really doesn't have enough to even hold up half of a women's division. So hopefully we won't see that in AEW anytime soon. If they do ever decide to go that route, I would plead with Tony Khan to actually build up a women's tag team division before you have belts. You don't create a title and then try to create a division off the top of that. It just comes off sloppy, in my opinion. But great looking belt. Obviously, they did announce that there's going to be a tournament. I'm not really sure the particulars. I will keep you guys informed going forward with that as I'm able to read. And, I mean, it'll leak. I'm sure all of you will end up hearing about it, blah, blah, blah. But I'll definitely be up here, stroking my ego, giving you guys my thoughts on the matter once I get more information. We got a sit-down interview with Darby Allin and JR up next. Good interview. Darby Allin's promos have not been the strongest. This was good, though. We probably learned more about Darby Allin in this one segment than we have the entire 2 years that he's been on AEW. Talked about his face paint, talked about why he paints half of his face, feeling dead inside from the car wreck with his uncle. So just that piece of information right there, we, in my opinion, got a lot more than we usually get out of Darby. Darby Allin with Sting took on Nick Comoroto after this. This wasn't even really a match. We got like 30 seconds of action. Darby did take a really impressive dive onto the outside before the match even started, I believe. Shortly after that, we went to commercial. Match took place in picture-in-picture. We came back, and within 30 seconds, Darby Allin had gotten the pinfall. After the match, Sting hit the Scorpion Death Drop on QT Marshall. I've had an issue in recent weeks with Sting just randomly Scorpion Death Dropping Darby's opponents. It's kind of strange. I don't think it's really necessary, but I didn't have a problem with this because it's QT Marshall. We got a Dark Order promo. They seem to be all hunky-dory. Everything seems to be fine with them. We'll see if that lasts. Dante Martin and Malachi Black. At least that's what it seems to be by this next segment. I am a huge fan of this. It looks like they are finally getting ready to move Malachi Black away from the Nightmare Collective, Nightmare Family, whatever the hell they're going by these days. We had Hikaru Shida and Serena Deeb after that. This match, so going into this, I thought this had maybe as little drama as the TNT Championship. I was fairly sure that I was pretty sure that Hikaru Shida was going over. The heel turn with Serena Deeb afterwards, I thought was really well done. I'm looking forward to what they may or may not do with that going forward. I think in the long run, Serena Deeb might be a good pick for the TBS women's title. We'll see how that goes. After that, we got a backstage segment. Alex Marvez, who was attempting to interview Darby Allin. Darby Allin got jumped by MJF and his goons. At least we're pretty sure that's what's going on. If you watch the segment back, it's fairly obvious who's who and who's under the masks. We were going to have a MJF and Darby match, I believe, next week. That appears to be getting pushed back as Darby is quote-unquote unable to compete at the moment, which is actually good. I thought it was kind of strange that they might be doing the championship match. God, I'm retarded this weekend. Sorry. It's been a long week. The match in general, I think it should be saved for the pay-per-view in 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever the hell it is. I just think the match should be saved. After that, we got the main event, the casino ladder match. Now, I could go over this in its entirety. I'm cutting back on recapping the matches, move for move. I've been watching a lot of AEW and a lot of Ring of Honor, and it's difficult to do with their matches with as active as they are. WWE matches, it's pretty easy to do. But the big story coming out of this one is we're going to be getting our Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page championship match. I'm super stoked. I thought the way that they took him off TV was a little strange. We had heard before that, about a month, maybe a little bit more before they took him off TV, that he was going to be having a kid, so it shouldn't have been super surprising. But he's back. He's got his championship match in his back pocket. I don't know exactly when they're doing this match. They didn't say. It would make sense for me to have the match at Full Gear, given the history of those two and that event. Doesn't make any sense not to do it there. I think you do the match, and I think that you do the title change. Only makes sense, in my opinion. The story coming out of that, in my opinion, after that, is going to be who do you feed to Adam Page to build him up as a credible champion, and then going forward after that, who might he drop the championship to? MJF probably would have been on my radar, and maybe still is. With Punk and Danielson in the mix now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that World Championship picture. CM Punk doesn't seem ultra interested in that at the moment. I know Punk probably isn't super interested, and he probably doesn't see any reason he should be champion at all. I don't see how you don't make him champion, but at some point, I think Danielson will probably get it before he does. But that was AEW. Apart from the main event, wasn't a grade A wrestling show. A lot of promo stuff. I'm starting to wonder if, well, I've been wondering this for a while. AEW, I think, should cut back on the promo and interview segments a little bit. Excuse me, sorry. I think they should cut back on the promo and interview segments a little bit and maybe get stuff flowing a little bit better. AEW is kind of like a Slayer record. The first note hits you in the forehead, and then it hits you in the forehead over and over and over again until it hits you in the forehead at the very end. That's fine with a 20 or 30 minute thrash album, but I think they could benefit from a little bit better pacing. Going from that, we're going to go to Ring of Honor TV, which when I watched it, it aired on the 9th, on Saturday. Didn't really get much of an intro. We usually get Quinn McKay or someone kind of giving us the rundown. I don't remember seeing that in this past episode. Briscoes on commentary, at least for this first match. We got the Shane Taylor we got SOS, actually, I believe they're called. So part of Shane Taylor Productions versus Dalton Castle and Dax. Dalton was Dalton in this match. Most of my notes actually are involving him. I do have one criticism of this match. Dalton Castle tagged in while basically on the top rope. That kind of drove me nuts. When we came back from our first commercial break, Dalton got the tag and Dax handed off a... How the hell do I even describe this? He handed their opponent off in a gut-wrench suplex position to Dalton Castle, who then did the move. It was really strange. Dalton Castle was the light of this match, in my opinion. Dalton Castle would tag out. He got chased down, and his quote-unquote chickens, his lackeys, formed, I guess what you'd call a chicken coop around him, and then proceeded to get the hell scared out of them and run off. It was hilarious. I would suggest anyone go back and watch this. Dalton Castle, big character. There was a moment he was on the outside and got his face up in the camera and said, I hope everyone at home is enjoying this because it's special and it's filling. I just thought it was hilarious. SOS would end up picking up the win. Afterwards, there was, as Jim Cornette would say, an afterbirth. Kenny King and Dragon Lee came out, kicked the shit out of SOS. SOS got back up on the mic and basically challenged them. So we will be getting that tag team championship match 2-on-2. The 6-man tag titles are not going to be on the line. It's going to be the ROH Tag Team Championship on the line next week. I don't see a title change here. The tag titles were just won by Dragon Lee and Kenny King. And I don't know. A faction can definitely have the 3-man or the 6-man titles and the tag titles. I just don't know that you need them on the same person. It's kind of overkill. After that, we had Willow versus Alizé versus Angelina Love. Willow's promo was a little cringe. Wasn't a big fan of it. It was actually just... So if you watched the... what was it? It was either Week by Week or the Women's Division Wednesday. I don't remember which, but if you watched them, they literally just took Willow's promo from that and copied and pasted it on the TV show, which I guess isn't the worst thing in the world. As someone who doesn't watch the YouTube shows every week, but does watch them from time to time, I found it a little annoying. Chelsea Green was on commentary. This was a typical triple threat match. There's not a ton of stuff to get into. I do have a note here. So, Willow ended up getting the pin at 8 minutes and 32 seconds. If you've ever watched Ring of Honor on ROH TV, wherever you get their syndications, and I actually believe on their YouTube channel as well, the match ends, and then they put a little graphic in the corner of the screen telling you how long the match was. 8 minutes, 32 seconds. The reason that's a big deal is because this past Friday on SmackDown, the 2 women's matches they had did not total half of that. What I have to say about that is pretty simple. If you're pissed off at WWE for that shit, watch Ring of Honor. Got the main event after that. Matt Tavin and Mike Bennett versus Bandito and Ray Horace. This was a little bit of a clusterfuck. It wasn't as much of a clusterfuck as I thought it was going to be. ROH does a lot of tag team matches and a lot of 3-on-3 and 8-on-8. And the 3-on-3 and 8-on-8, the 3-on-3 and the 4-on-4, excuse me. Someone needs to walk up behind me and slap me in the back of the fucking head this week. ROH has just got this, how can I put this? I'm a big ROH fan. I have been getting them criticisms too, so I do have to bring this up. I like the 1 hour formula. It makes everything easy to digest. It reminds me of what NXT used to be when it was on a network. Not that it's a developmental territory or anything necessarily, but just Ring of Honor is really easy to sit down and digest, and then I get kind of excited talking about it. But the one major complaint I have about the show, and it does have to do with the 1 hour format, is every week they at least have usually one big multi-man match. Now, we didn't really get that this week. We are getting that next week. We're getting a 4-on-4 tag team match. We got 2 tag team matches. Again, this one wasn't as much of a clusterfuck as I thought. I went off on a tangent there, but yeah, Ring of Honor definitely suffers from their 1 hour format. This match made me really want to see Bandito versus Matt Tavin for the ROH Championship. It is extremely unfortunate that Vincent was the one to win that cage match, in my opinion. Surprisingly enough, Matt Tavin and Mike Bennett would end up going over in this match. Ray Horace would take the pinfall, which is the way it should be. They've been putting Bandito in these tag team matches, and when his team loses, they don't make him eat the pinfall, which I liked a lot. Mike Bennett and Matt Tavin, I believe they said, moved up in the tag team championship rankings in this. ROH can be a little slow updating their rankings. I don't even know if they have. I need to start watching the website a little closer and seeing if they have like a specific day that they update them. I know that I think AEW does it every Friday or Saturday. But that is the recap for Ring of Honor and AEW. I enjoyed both shows. Obviously, I had my fair share of criticisms. It is what it is. I can be opinionated. So that will do it for this week. Before I go, a couple of things. If you enjoy this, whatever platform you're on, share it to your friends on Twitter. You can follow me at Twitter at @FFDpod. I've got a Facebook page, got a YouTube channel, which I'm working on exclusive content for that. We're slowly getting that stuff up. You can go check that out. Now, there is a local promotion called Prestige Wrestling. I bring this up because they have an event coming up in February and have already announced Malachi Black on the event, along with Nick Wayne, which, unless you're really into this Pacific Northwest indie scene or indie scenes elsewhere, I don't know that you'll know that name. If you listen to the podcast, his name might sound familiar. He took on El Fantasmo at the DOA event that I went to last weekend or the weekend before. Working swing shift kind of sucks. The days start to bleed in together. But anyway, he's going to be announced for it. General admission tickets go on sale later today. Actually, they'll be on sale as you hear this. I kind of want to go VIP. I think meeting Malachi Black would be awesome. I'm also keeping my fingers crossed. I know that Prestige and Defy have signed some type of deal with Danhausen to do multiple dates at both, and I'm hoping that this is going to be in February. I believe the 22nd. Don't quote me on that. I don't have it sitting in front of me. I'm hoping that they end up announcing Danhausen on the bill. This is not me saying that Danhausen is going to be there, so don't take that as gospel. I don't know anyone at the promotion. I've never even exchanged emails with them. I have with a few promotions. This is not one of them. But I'm just hoping that Danhausen ends up being there. Anyway, again, that'll do it for this week. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me YouTube. You can follow me pretty much anywhere. Not super active on Facebook. It is what it is. But that'll do it for this week, and we will talk to you next week.